If you pass by the white stone steps of the Supreme Court, shining in the morning sun, and hear a former president accuse those inside of having ransacked America, something in the heart hesitates. Why choose such a word, one heavy with accusation, for the guardians of our laws? How can a verdict in a room of robed judges spark a charge so bitter, so grave? There is more to this story than meets the eye. In a moment that traveled quickly across the land, President Trump took to the public square and declared that the Supreme Court, by striking down his global tariff program, had overstepped, had even wounded the country itself. He named just 3 justices as loyal dissenters, Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, and Brett Kavanaugh, and called the rest disrespectful, not just to him, but to the very presidents who had chosen them. Some of these justices had once owed their seats to his own hand. To those watching, it seemed almost a quarrel among family, waged on the highest platform. Picture a glow from the phone screens in Washington as aides huddle around a Truth Social post, parsing every new word. They have weaponized the court, the president says, words that echo through the marble halls and into households as far as Michigan or Texas, where families worry over what tariffs may bring. The ruling itself was as clear as it was bold, a 6-3 decision from the highest court, holding that tariff power belongs not to the president alone, but to Congress. The justices, their opinions bound in plain black folders, cast their votes not by friendship or pride, but by what they read in the Constitution's lines. Yet no sooner had their ink dried than the accusation of politics rose to meet their work. Here stands a question. When a president feels ransacked by a court that he once praised, who truly sets the boundaries of power? The answer, I suspect, is one we have not fully grasped. Now the stage widens. Congress, by the ancient text of our law, alone holds the keys to tariffs and trade. But the president, drawing from the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, sought to steer the ship of commerce by his own compass. For years, courts had let such things pass. But this time, after long debate in chambers and study of the founders' words, the Supreme Court drew the line. They ruled that even in moments claimed as emergency, the hand of one can never become the law for all. Think of the chambers in which those debates unfolded, the justices separated by belief, yet sharing a duty older than any party. Inside one office, the dissenters, Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh, penned their protest, believing the executive must act in the nation's defense. But across the hall, a majority, including some appointed by the same president, refused to bend the law for any one man, however loud his call or high his office. For citizens, the challenge is not just legal, but moral. If a president calls a court political when it checks his power, does that claim turn fact into suspicion, law into rivalry? If justices cannot say no to the executive without inviting wrath, what fence stands between freedom and will? The Republic has faced such storms before. Picture Andrew Jackson, standing in defiance as the Supreme Court rebuked his conduct. John Marshall has made his decision, now let him enforce it, Jackson is said to have quipped, a shadow of pride crossing the land. Or think of Franklin Roosevelt, frustrated by justices who blocked his economic plans, threatening to grow the court itself. In every era, separation of powers has drawn the battlefield lines, yet it is in such friction that liberty finds its shield. Imagine a group of attorneys clutching their notebooks, filing into the federal building in Washington the morning after this latest ruling, tasked with drafting new legislation, all under the watchful eye of a Congress wary of ceding away its birthright. Around the world, in Mexico City, trade envoys write and rewrite terms, mindful that nothing agreed to is safe without the force of law behind it. This case is not only about tariffs and trade, it is a trial of something deeper, whether any president can claim absolute right to rule at his own will, and if not, whether he, and those who follow, will heed the boundaries set by the people's servants. The Constitution knows no king, only officers who serve and are restrained by law. There is a paradox here. The 3 dissenters warn that emergency powers must sometimes be bold to shield the nation from harm. Yet the majority reply, boldness unchecked soon becomes the only brute force, not justice. Justice, they remind us, is not built for the comfort of any one leader, but for the steady protection of all. Think, for a moment, of the Senate floor alive with debate. The words national emergency ring out, each senator holding the power to check or to yield. On one end of the chamber, you hear arguments that the president needs swift authority, a shield when foes gather. On the other, voices rise warning that if emergency can be declared by one alone, then all limits might sink away beneath the waves of fear. In that tension, the health of the republic is measured. Now, consider the steel mill outside Detroit, where workers look to the faces in Washington, unsure if new tariffs will bring more work or close more doors. They do not feel the cold reasoning of justices or the quick words of presidents, only the aftershocks rippling out from the heart of government. For every order on trade, for every challenge in court, there are men and women loading trucks, mothers at the breakfast table, business owners hoping their numbers balance. Each relies on the steadiness of law, not the tempers of the mighty. But what can hold when leaders in public sow doubt in the very courts designed to set limits? Here, the danger grows sharper. What begins as a few heated words may gather into suspicion, a sense that courts and Congress are little more than battlegrounds for loyalty, not law. I must stop and ask, is there a way, once that seed is planted, to bring trust back to soil so deeply scratched? History has seen this before, in times when branches of government pointed fingers, calling each other traitor, tyrant, or coward. But seldom have those storms yielded more than bitterness and delay. The real work of healing began not with thunder, but with citizens and officials alike returning to the habits of restraint. Let me take you to the inner office of Justice John Roberts, his desk stacked with folders, his gaze heavy not just with the day's work, but with the weight of holding together a fragile balance. On the wall hangs a copy of the Constitution, faded and worn. As he signs his name beneath the majority opinion, I imagine he wonders whether his countrymen will see this as duty done or as an act of party, of payback, of pride. How does a republic teach its leaders to surrender power, to set aside vengeance for the common good? This question echoes through our halls today, unanswered as yet. Step into a press conference room, bright with cameras, where reporters read aloud the court's decision and the president's rebuke. Some ask if the conflict will throw trade policy into chaos. Others press White House advisors to name who, now, truly speaks for the nation. In homes from Nevada to North Carolina, Americans weigh their own doubts, passing the day's news over quiet suppers. If leaders give in to the temptation to frame disagreement as betrayal, citizens too may come to see each verdict or veto not as a test of law, but as a contest of teams. The republic cannot thrive if every check is an insult or every limit a treason. Pause and picture the House of Representatives, as lawmakers from Michigan and Ohio, Texas and Illinois gather around old law books, each page groaning under the burden of history's last crises. They argue late into the night, marking up bills that would clarify who, in time of emergency, can pull the levers of trade. Their challenge is not only to fix the day's confusion, but to guard against the slow decay of shared trust. In the face of so much friction, some may wonder, can the system still hold? Is our order so fragile that one burst of fury can tear at its seams? Or is there a deeper strength that remains, seen not in moments of ease, but in the hardest hours, when those given power accept its boundaries and yield when the law says, enough? Let us look backward, to the founding. The men who signed the parchment in Philadelphia knew that no single office, no matter how noble its occupant, could be trusted always to see what is just. They wrote checks and balances not as insults, but as promises. Promises that the day would not come when passion or loyalty put the republic's survival at risk. Benjamin Franklin, at the end of that long summer, warned that Americans would keep their republic if you can keep it. To keep it, even presidents and judges would need to admit at times what is not theirs by right, no matter how strong the urge to claim it. Think again of the ruled lines on an opinion from the Supreme Court, each signature a reminder that law stands above personality. It is not always a comfortable truth, nor a pleasant one, for those who hope to reshape great matters by force of will. But it is the foundation on which Americans of all stripes, farmers, teachers, soldiers, and presidents, walk day by day. As each branch of our government pushes and yields, sometimes in anger, sometimes in cooperation, the test is not whether one man can bend the order to his liking, but whether we all, leader and citizen alike, can remember to serve something bigger than pride. A presidential challenge to the court, especially by naming only loyal dissenters, risks more than legal confusion. It risks setting aflame the very guardrails whose steady presence keeps the nation from flying apart at the seams. In the end, every dispute over the limits of power is a mirror in which Americans can see what we stand for. Are we a people who worship strength alone, or do we hold to the slower, humbler discipline of law? At the settlement of every such question rides not just prosperity or prestige, but the soul of the country. Let us not ignore what is at stake. If public confidence in the law's fairness is lost, no parade of victories or proud speeches can restore it. For every home in Michigan made anxious by trade, every advocate in Washington bent over a legal draft, every justice awake at midnight at 1 Street, all depend, in the end, on a bond of trust that only steady leadership can renew. Here, I would invite all watching to recall something simple. Not all news is black and white. In times of trouble, we may be pulled to one side or another by urgent voices, by headlines or posts flashing anger or approval. But stepping back, the pattern is clearer than the moment's noise. The Republic endures because her people, those with the most power and those with the least, agree that rules, not rulers, have the last word. One last picture. A late day on the steps of the Supreme Court, lights glowing low along the avenue as a lone janitor sweeps beneath the columns. The building stands, battered by storms, proud but never invulnerable. It will stand tomorrow only if we, the people, keep faith. So too has our system of checks and balances weathered every crisis, not because it cannot be broken, but because time and again, citizens and leaders have chosen to repair what pride or outrage threatened to undo. The Republic can be saved. It will be saved not by silent resignation, nor by angry defiance, but by the quiet courage to accept limits, to trust the slow process of law, and to place country above self when it matters most. And so I leave you with this. When power and resentment clash upon the granite walls of old institutions, will you answer the call to be stewards, not just of your side, but of the common good? That, more than any office or verdict, will decide whether free government endures.